So here's our melody again from the previous video where we discovered that this particular combination of pitches and rhythms gives us the very familiar tune Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and we're still kind of celebrating the fact that we were able to read that just using the things that we've learnt already. But one question that did stand out was, why did I draw these vertical lines into the music dividing up the melody in this way? And so there's a very good reason why I did this, and we'll be exploring that in this video. So I suppose one good way to find out why we need to do this and draw in these vertical lines and measuring out the music in this way is to say get rid of them and see what would happen. Okay, so here's what we get if we take those vertical lines away. Perhaps the first thing to notice is the music somehow it looks a little bit less organised. It seems that there isn't such an easy way to work out where you are in the music, and that's something that's very important when you're playing an instrument, is you need to be able to very quickly see where you are in the music, and somehow those vertical lines help to split up the music into manageable chunks. And so another thing that's really important is to note that we haven't just split this melody up randomly into whatever we feel like in terms of chunks. Each of these chunks is exactly the same in terms of the number of beats that it lasts for in the music. So let's have a look and just prove that's the case. So we're going to add up all of the notes in this bar. So we've got 4 quarter notes here. So if we add those together, we're going to end up with 4. And we could do the same again in this bar. This half note, of course, lasting for 2 beats. So we give it 2 counts. And we can do the same thing here, just going through and showing that each of these segments in the melody all last for 4 beats. And there's actually quite a few reasons why we do this. It's not just to make it easier to look at on the page, although it does kind of help with the layout of the music. Another thing is to sort of show us and indicate in the music the way that this particular melody relates to the beat that sits underneath. And we've talked about in earlier videos the way that most of the time with music that we're playing or music that we're listening to, we can probably identify an underlying beat that's always going on, ticking like a clock or like a heartbeat underneath the melodies and harmonies of the music. And something that's also very true about beats is that, and that could be true of a heartbeat hopefully, and also about music, is that those beats tend to be quite regular. They tend to not just be at random, they tend to follow quite standard repeating patterns. And so in most pieces of music you can normally get the beats to fit into manageable chunks of, say, groups of 2, groups of 3, or groups of 4. And there are some exceptions to that, and hopefully we will get to some music that does that, and it's really fantastic when music does play around with unusual groupings of beats. But actually, most of the time, it's 2, 3, or 4 beats that fit into a nice group. And so one very good way to organise the rhythms in this Twinkle Twinkle Little Star melody, or at least the first part of it that we've written down so far, is to look at the way that they conveniently fit into larger groups of 4 beats. And we can even count these beats off as we're sort of playing the melody. So I'm going to try and do that. I'm going to try and do exactly what we did before, but I'm going to say the numbers instead of the words, and hopefully we'll be able to see how those fit into repeating patterns of 4 beats. And the music just seems to sort of fit into those patterns, of these groups of 4 beats, this continual grouping, and it just carries on, for as long as the music carries on, this sort of comfortable grouping of beats into groups of 4 in this particular piece will just seem to naturally fit and naturally seem right. So let's have a go and see if I can do it. So I'm going to clap myself in, but this time I'm going to count myself in as well, and let's see if we can do it. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so hopefully you'll agree that there's sort of something about this melody that just naturally likes to sit into groups of 4. It's just really comfortable, and we'll see that the melody finishes as well very conveniently after 4 groups of 4 beats. And so the way that we show these natural groupings of beats in the music is with something called measures. This is the general term in the United States, and in the UK and other parts of the world we sometimes call them bars. And so these groups of 4 beats are known as measures. So each one of these is a measure or a bar. And so we could talk about this melody as having 4 measures or 4 bars, and that just means that the melody nicely is divided up into 4 groups of 4 beats. And that's what we've got. That's exactly what we've got here. So here's our first measure, and this first measure takes in everything from the start of the melody up until this first horizontal line, and it's 4 beats in total. And here's the second measure, or the second bar. And here's the third measure, or the third bar. And finally, the fourth measure, or the fourth bar. And so you might wonder why we've got two horizontal lines at the end of this little excerpt instead of just the one that we've seen so far, and that is purely because we use two to indicate this is the end of the piece of music that we're writing at this time. And so just to recap, we use measure lines or bar lines to indicate the natural groups of beats in the pieces of music that we're reading or writing down. And here they are here. These are some bar lines or measure lines here. And I might use those words interchangeably because we do hear both quite a lot. I'm very used to hearing bars and other people are used to using measures. And so these lines just help to show us where the natural groupings of the beats in the music that we're playing happen to fall. And so we said before that this piece of music naturally falls into groups of four. But the question is, do all pieces of music fall into natural groupings of four beats? Well, actually no, they don't. And in the next video, we'll have a look at some other pieces of music that fall into some different numbers of beats. For example, 3 beats or 2 beats. And that can give the music a hugely different character when we've got different numbers of grouped beats into our measures.